What is your craziest gig experience?
So it's hard to choose a single craziest gigging experience, but the thing that comes to mind is actually a show that didn't happen. But it was how it didn't happen and what the show was that just made it wild. So it was a sold-out Madison Square Garden show. And the plan was for the artist that I was playing for to just do like a little 10-minute feature and close the show with some of the songs that they and the headliner had done together. I was super excited to play that show because it's the Garden. It's one of the world's most famous arenas. And I had grown up watching DVDs like The Song Remains the Same by Led Zeppelin, which was filmed there. The thing was though, and this is going to sound really weird, but I swear it's true, I was told they couldn't guarantee that there would be enough room on stage for me, but I could show up and try. Now, of course that sounds ridiculous, but it makes a little bit of sense. We were rolling with a smaller lineup for that show because it was just supposed to be a little 10-minute feature, and we were supposed to hop on the other band's gear and use their gear. So you can kind of see how it would have been a tight stage. But my instinct was that if I had just showed up and talked to the right person, that of course it would be fine and I'd probably be able to play. So that was the plan. So MSG is a gorgeous arena, especially when it's filled with 20,000 enthusiastic music fans. However, I'd soon learn that that was not a sight that I'd get to see from the stage, but not for the reason that I thought. That's right, the band was set up backstage in a curtained-off area. Why you wouldn't want this absolutely killin' band to be part of the show was totally beyond me. But it turned out that my instincts about there being room were right. I found the other keyboard player and he was like, oh yeah, you can use my rig, which is what I knew was going to happen. Okay, so great. It's a little weird with us not being in the arena and all that, but I'm still getting to play a sold-out Madison Square Garden show, right? Well, as the night went on, things seemed strange. So the situation continues to be ridiculous. There's some speculation that we're not going to go on at all. No sound check ever happened, and we weren't set up with any way to even monitor what was happening on stage in the arena. So I had no idea how this was going to happen, but I have been surprised before, so we stayed all day and all throughout the show, thinking we were going to close the show because still nobody had said anything otherwise. And as the show was coming to an end, we were there, backstage, standing around the other band, thinking we were about to swap out with them and play. But then the show just ended. And we watched the whole crowd walk out on monitors backstage while we're all saying amongst ourselves, I guess we're not going on. It's not happening. How was your first experience playing Madison Square Garden, Jeff?
If I actually played, I could tell you.
Another one down, Greg.
This is me pretending that I just played to all these people. Now in hindsight, whoever made the call to cut us, I think was correct because there hadn't been any kind of sound check, and I don't even know how anything could have happened, but still it was very weird to spend the whole day at MSG thinking I was going to play, and then just not playing and never really being communicated anything. Very weird. Still got paid though.
I know you can't give specifics, but can you tell us the best and worst things about working with famous people?
So yeah, it is really interesting to be around people who have risen to the pinnacle of what most artists strive for. They move through the world differently. Reality kind of bends around them, and it's fascinating to observe. Obviously, I'm not going to say specific things about specific people, but I'll say this. Most artists out there suffer from the pain of putting their art out into the world and having nobody pay any attention at all. Releasing music on social media and having it get like 12 likes, releasing an album or a song and it gets like 100 streams. Most of us know this struggle. I certainly do. And I've worked with a number of people now who are on the opposite side of that predicament, where they deal with the constant attention of the world, where everything they do, musically or otherwise, gets commented on by a mass of people. And even though that comes with money and power and validation, it doesn't appear to me to be very conducive to mental peace or stability. They might have the love of millions, but that's not really the kind of love we need. I feel like I've observed some famous people to have a certain suffering quality about them. And I'm not saying it's like always like that, but I think the lesson is that whether everybody is giving you love and validation and admiration for your art, or nobody is, the attention of others can have a corrupting effect on the soul. And so one of the big challenges of the artist is to manage within yourself your relationship to the attention of others, whether it be the abundance of it or the lack of it. By the way, I don't claim to be above any of this stuff. I am able to say this because I go through it too. I have the ego desire for masses of people to be consuming my art and listening to my music and watching my videos and giving me validation and blah, 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 just like so many others. I think though that I have grown more at peace with wherever I happen to be at in life through observing firsthand that if all my wildest dreams came true, life would not necessarily be better.
Do you have any thoughts or feelings about squirrels?
Don't get me started on squirrels. I mean, it goes without saying that...
Hi, I'm a keyboardist. I've just started doing small shows and gigs. How can I level up my game?
So I don't know where you're at on the keyboards. For all I know, you're way better than me. But my general advice is this. Go through a condensed period of time where you work really hard to become as skilled as you possibly can at your instrument. You're of course always going to keep learning and growing as a player as you have different musical experiences out there in the world. But go through your woodshed year or 2 or 3 where you consciously work really hard at it and get your fundamentals super solid. You'll keep getting better after that too, but as you get older, it becomes harder to fit practicing into your life. Being solid at your instrument is your strongest asset in your career. It'll transcend whether any specific band you're in makes it or something like that. Also, as a keyboard player, it's really good to have a grasp on all the main keyboard instruments. Play a little bit of organ, know how to groove a bit on some funky clav stuff, learn a bit about synthesizers. Don't be that guy who just does jazz piano. Unless, of course, you really, really want to be.
What is your favorite place you've ever been on tour?
Saudi Arabia was my favorite trip. We played in a giant mirrored cube in the middle of the desert, and it was amazing for so many reasons. In America, we have a certain idea of what it means for something to be old. But in Saudi Arabia, the history goes back literally to, the dawn of civilization. So it all feels so much deeper.
Being around things that are so ancient has a certain gravity to it.
This was actually a rare occasion where we had a bunch of days off, and we explored a ton. We saw a bunch of amazing historical places, ate a lot of great food, and even took a hot air balloon ride over the desert at sunrise. Also, it felt like we were on this cutting edge of a cultural evolution there, because concerts had been illegal for decades up until just a few years ago, and so people were super excited to see us and all that.
Our sound check is getting cut short because the whole tech crew has to pray at specific times of day.
I could go on and on about that trip, but I did do a whole video on it, so go check that out.
How much do you backline versus how much do you fly with? And if you had to do the whole gig on only one board, which would it be?
The first show I ever flew out to play, I brought 3 keyboards with me because I felt like I needed my sounds and I didn't want to leave any chance of not having them. Well, that was a massive pain in the ass, and so I never did that again. So then for a long time I traveled just with my Yamaha Mode EX, but really flying with anything is kind of a pain in the ass. So nowadays I backline everything and I bring nothing. I do, however, bring a thumb drive with all my Yamaha settings saved onto it that I load up into the backline Yamaha. And I also have all my Prophet 6 settings saved into a sysx file on my laptop, which I transfer to the backline Prophet. This works basically every time. Every now and then it doesn't work for some reason, and I have to rebuild all my sounds from scratch at the gig, which sucks, but it doesn't happen that often. If I had to do the whole gig on just one keyboard, I'd pick the Yamaha Montage for sure. The analog sounds are not going to sound as good as an analog board, but it's got all the sounds that I need, and I can organize my presets very easily with set lists and layers and scenes and splits. That kind of thing is great for live performance.
Can you do videos about sound patches? And how do you play so many sounds during live concerts?
So I have talked about sound patches in a few videos, but I love the second part of this question. How do I play so many sounds during a live performance? Anyone who has followed this channel will know that I love to talk about using the Yamaha Montage or Mode EX to send program change messages to the whole rest of my rig.
I need to be able to hit one button and have everything switched to the right settings right away. And I need it to work every time.
I did a video where I break down exactly how to do this step by step, but basically, there's a feature on Yamaha workstations where you can embed program change messages into any performance. I set the MIDI channel, bank number, and program number, and then save the patch. Let's call it Killing Me Softly. So then when we're about to play that song, I just hit the Kill Me Softly button on my montage, and every keyboard in the rig switches to the sound and tempo that I need for that song. This was a game changer for me. If you play multiple keyboards and complicated sounds in a live setting, you're never going to remember every patch for every song and switch to it in time. Managing my presets through some centralized method makes it possible for me to even play complicated sounds at all.
Hey, I just wanted to ask how you started getting sponsorships from major keyboard and music companies, and if you reach out to them first or if they've reached out to you. I'm just wondering as a fellow keyboard player who is just starting content creation and trying to get into that sort of thing.
So I think about it less as getting sponsorships from gear companies and more like, how can me and this company work together to both achieve our goals? And if you approach a company with that mindset, I think there's a much greater chance of it turning into some kind of relationship. The company's goal is to sell gear. My goal is to be a content creator, and working with companies can help me achieve my goal if A, it helps me grow my following, and B, if I get paid to make content. My ideal relationship with the company is that I make whatever content I want to make on their gear, and then they post it to their large following, and then I get a bunch of followers out of it. I'd actually rather that than like get free gear or something like that. I suggest just start making content with your gear. You don't really need the relationship with the company. I mean, make stuff and then send it to them and see what happens. I mean, some will respond, others won't. Some will share your video, others won't. I will say, though, that I've had companies with followers in the hundreds of thousands share my stuff and tag my account, and it didn't change my life. Just having a big page post to your thing doesn't necessarily result in getting a bunch of new followers. But to more directly answer your question, no, I haven't had a company reach out to me first because I'm not like a huge deal or anything like that. Actually, it did happen one time. I did a video on the Arturia Astrolab, and Arturia reached out to me because they didn't like what I said. I reached out to Rolly first because I really wanted to play a C-board on tour. And Yamaha has never gotten back to me, even though the montage is like the main part of my touring rig, and I talk about them all the time. But whatever, they don't owe me anything. Alright, so that's my Q&A video. Here I am editing it in the van while I'm on a road trip. Yeah, and I guess I realized that I didn't like shoot an outro. So this is the outro. If you like what I do, subscribe to the page, and I have a Patreon now, so if you want to support me, I'll drop the link to that, I guess, in the description. And also a huge thank you to all the new people who have come onto the channel since my last video. Welcome to the channel, and yeah, I hope you like what I do. See you next video.